What's up, you guys? So welcome to another BB Talk with BB. You look into the camera. With BB. Yes. So we are just gonna talk. I don't know how else to say it, but we have a new setup. So hopefully this feels a little bit more intimate and you guys can see us a little better and hear us better because we have mics now.
Oh yeah.
But to cut to the chase, we really want to help people out there that are ready to attract their life partner, but they may have limiting beliefs or they're just wondering why they haven't attracted their person. Because I had that experience before meeting you, and I had to overcome certain obstacles to actually be in a position to attract our partnership. I guess we're gonna kind of talk about that on both sides. So yeah,
totally. So what are things you had to overcome before getting into this relationship you knew would be detrimental to it working out or not?
Prior to even knowing you or dating for that matter, if you don't know the context behind why I created my channel, I have overcome a 7+ year Adderall journey. So a big factor into really actually quitting was knowing that if I wanted to attract a genuine, honest, authentic relationship, I had to be that for myself. And I felt as if I wasn't being the most honest when I was on the substance.
Makes sense. So
I knew in my intuition, whether it's the Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it, I just knew that if I wanted to attract you into my life, I had to just quit because, yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
It's hard to answer that question because there's so much that goes into that question.
Yeah, sure. So what are your top three things that happened to you that if you overcame allowed you to find?
Yeah, okay, I guess the other part to that is I had to overcome cheating. In the sense that most of my previous relationships, they ended because of cheating, and it really created unhealthy patterns in my mind, and it created a lot of limiting beliefs that, men ain't shit, all guys are cheaters, there's no, it just won't work. But I knew I didn't really genuinely think that, because there are guys like my dad and there are good men out there. I do know that. But at the time, after being burnt so many times and being around even female friends that have also been in those situations, they feed into that, into those limiting beliefs. Even just the music that I would listen to, it just all kind of perpetuates this idea that no one's faithful or loyal anymore.
Okay.
So I personally obviously had to forgive, not like I was in contact with any of those people, but I had to be at peace with everything that had happened, even to the degree that I had attracted, or I had played a part in attracting those relationships and allowing them to my life, and not having the best judgment. And I also give myself grace in that I was very young and naive, and I just accepted whatever form of love came from a man because I lacked that growing up with my own father. So
makes sense. Okay. A better question to ask in this case would be how often has that happened to you? How often did you get burned?
I would say the majority of my relationships.
How many?
I could think of 3 important, or 3 ones that are seared into my mind that really had an effect on me, to where I stopped dating and I was celibate for a couple years because of it.
Okay.
And that time was very necessary for me to come to these conclusions of, wanting to quit Adderall, just wanting to be alone and with myself, and, getting closer to God and stuff like that. So
sure.
I think those were very necessary. And then, go ahead.
So what was the exact lesson? If you had to put it into words, what was the exact lesson that you learned, that once you learned, got
That's a good question.
Made amends with all of those?
I think it was to not just accept any type of love from anyone.
That's a good one.
Looking back, just pretty much any guy that showed interest to me, I would confuse that as acceptance and the love that I craved so badly growing up.
Makes sense. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I see. Okay, because if you just accept it from anywhere, then, someone will say like, I love you, and like, you'll believe them.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. And of course, the people that I attracted at the time, they would take advantage of that.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
But I let that happen as well. So, those things happened, but that's why I value our relationship so much now, because I can finally appreciate this, because I experienced the exact opposite of what we have. Because of all that stuff happening, when I was finally ready to meet people, I had to have faith that I would meet someone, even though I wasn't like putting pressure that I would meet like my future husband on the apps. Like, I had to put myself out there despite having shitty experiences again. Okay. So basically, it's like my experience is a definition of getting rejected time and time again, but it just takes that one person to change your life. Like, it's that one yes that will make all the no's worth it, I guess.
Yeah, no, 100%.
So that's pretty much, yeah.
That makes sense, yeah. That's interesting, because like when girls get cheated on in relationships, they either go like one of two routes.
Yeah.
They either go down the route of like, men ain't shit, like that whole like camp. And then the other bandwagon is, yeah, I got cheated on, but I'm gonna continue just doing my best to still believe that there's good people out there. How much of that for you was like, not self-blame, but like, how much of that, like the cheating that happened to you and you realizing that it's because like your dad never like gave you that love like when you were growing up as much, how much of that did you take full accountability for, and was that enough to basically like keep your mindset in a positive like place instead of going down the men ain't shit bandwagon?
Yeah, I mean, I take full accountability on my part. I was attracting the people that I was being like. Not like I was a cheater, but I was hanging out in crowds that weren't good. Like, I was, at the time, that was heavy in my rave era, and doing drugs and drinking, and also, all my friends we were all like ABGs in a sorority, and, we would always just attract people who did, what is the word? Degenerate things.
Sure.
And I didn't come to that realization about paternal issues until the past couple years. So it's like I just closed myself off and pretty much swore off dating until like a couple years passed, and I realized like I can't just do this forever. Like, I mean, I could be alone forever if I really wanted to, but I know that life could be so much more beautiful with a partner. I just always knew that. And I always knew that despite having those experiences, not all men are like that. So after I had gotten over my emotions and had sought therapy, that's when I was able to think more clearer. And yeah.
Makes sense. How much like residual hurt was left over at the start of our relationship, and how close did that come for you for us to like break up? Remember in the beginning, like how like you wanted to leave a few times?
Yep. So that's like another thing. Like, even though I had thought I had done all this healing, I feel like no one prepares you for what it's like to start dating again after having those traumatic experiences and being in a healthy relationship. Because even now I have tendencies of being, I think the word's like anxiously avoidant, in the sense that if I feel triggered, rather than like being upfront and talking about it, I'll just assume things and I'll just want to leave. I know for a fact that I'm a lot better in that regard, but I think the beginning, that's still kind of where I was at, and I was in like a fight or flight mode, in that anytime there would be an issue in the relationship, I would just want to leave. Like, I didn't have the knowledge and experience on how to effectively communicate with a person and to stay in a relationship, because all the relationships I had been in, there was no opportunity for me to even work things out because I was just being cheated on. So it's like, what's the point of working it out if I'm going to be cheated on? So this was like for lack of better words, like the furthest it had gone for me, that I could actually have a real relationship.
Makes sense.
I have great parents, but they also didn't equip me with the proper tools on how to effectively communicate and not be so emotional. It's fine to have emotions, but like, you know, when we all talk and we argue, it's very passionate and heated and no one's listening to anybody. So that's like kind of what I had coming into this relationship. And so that whenever there would be something that would scare me, I would just want to leave because it's easier.
Really?
Yeah, it's like the first time that I've experienced anything like this before. So it's scary to date and be in a healthy relationship and giving someone another chance after you've given like a lot of chances.
That's also like why I asked like the question earlier is like, how much of what happened to you was like your own fault as a result of your past versus what gave you the strength to like keep going? But yeah, you know, it's all like both sides always exist.
Yeah.
The problem is when people start speaking things into existence. Was like when, you know, girls start saying like, you know, the whole like men ain't shit, like all those, the list of proverbs they have that are very relevant, right?
Yeah.
It's like as soon as they start saying those things, it's like they manifest men that aren't shit, you know, with the hopes of, okay, I'm going to keep this programming and mindset and I'm going to just put myself out there and hope that I get a good one. You know what I'm saying? But like the thing is like, it's the belief and the mindset that actually manifests that person, right? So cause like I think you always just attract exactly who you are. And if it's not like exact like for like, it's always like a complimentary, like, you know, thing. I'm glad you were able to like get over everything that happened to you in the past. And then to not bring that in the relationship, which is really good. You've done a good job of that, you know?
Hey.
So what made you like still believe that there's like still good people out there?
Like I said, I think even though my parents aren't perfect, my dad and my parents still being together after all these years and working through things, there was nothing that I saw that really... Okay, wait, actually, that's a lie. I had a life coach that...
Yeah.
She helped me in the sense that she told me about her story, which is very similar to mine. And that's how I also got on Hinge in the first place, because she had met her husband on Hinge, but she was an example of someone that told me that it is possible, and I just had to take her word for it. And not only that, but I just felt in my heart that there has to be more for me out there.
I really wonder sometimes how much of the negative things, like the negative beliefs that like girls like to say on a daily basis, how much of that their heart actually fights back. Because like when you say those things, like, well, obviously any negative thought never came from us to begin with, right? It always came from somebody else. Which means that like the good thoughts, if good thoughts originate from us, those are our like thoughts, right? I wonder when somebody who has been through the ringer says, you know, like the proverbial men aren't shit stuff, like how much of that when they say it does their heart actually like fight back and be like, you know, that's not true? I
think it's all shaped by how the men in your life have treated you, like your parents or your dad, your uncles, your brother. I think that's like what really will determine if you actually believe that. Because if you haven't had a good man in your life, then it's hard to just like, it's like kind of like wishful thinking because you've never experienced that for yourself.
And that's true. That's true.
Was there any obstacles you had to face, or what were the steps that you also had to take in order to attract this relationship?
Yeah, that's a good question.
You can do more high level and just talk about the general concept, and I can just ask you deeper questions after.
It's interesting because it's been pretty easy for me to like self-regulate what I want. Like I knew that if I was going to be in a relationship in the future, like I know the other person is just not going to cheat. And the reason I know it is because I just don't. So I'm going to basically get like for like on that. The thing is, like, as a guy, you can tell when you're with somebody who like would cheat on you. For me, that was just never an option. So I never saw that in my life. You know what I'm saying? Like I figured if I treat the other person correctly and right, I would never have to worry about that. With
that being said, since we didn't share that trauma, what baggage did you have coming to this relationship, or what worries did you have from your past relationships that you had worried would happen in this relationship?
I wouldn't say like worried is the right thing. I would just be like, I would just kind of say like, you know what, like I'll try this again. And if this happens, then I'm immediately gone.
Okay. And
So
what
like
was that for you?
For me, it was, well, I guess like the biggest thing that like I had to deal with, not in terms of just like things that always happened in my relationships or whatever, but it was like self-harm stuff. So like, for example, like my previous relationship, they got so frustrated over something that they locked themselves in the bathroom and they started like hitting themselves.
Oh, no.
And the thing is like, I used to punish myself that exact same way. Like I remember in college in like 2012, I had this computer science class that it was like out of 4 points and every test you passed gave you 0.5. So if you passed all 8 exams, you'd end up with a 4.0, which is like the highest. And like whenever you fail one, like there's basically like 8 grades and like 10 tests. So you can fuck up on 2 tests, and as long as you get the other ones right, you'll sit up with the highest like score basically. And I remember like there's like, because it was all or nothing, like it was pass fail. And so like when I failed some of the tests, I would basically like engage in like self-harm in the sense that like I would like punch my hairdresser or whatever, and just like I would want to feel pain, you know what I'm saying? I just had to like self-regulate that like immediately and just like be like, I can't be doing that. And mainly it's just basically just like from like being young and not being able to like fight back, you know, whether there's like bullies or whatever. And so just like, okay, like I deserve this pain, so I'm gonna inflict it myself, kind of, and it would make me feel better, which is such like a fucked up thing. But I just had to just realize that like, hey, like it's not that big of a deal. You know what I'm saying? If I fail like something or fail whatever, then it's just not big of a deal. You know, it's no big deal. And I just had to internalize that over the years, and that's never been like a problem. So this was happening in 2012, and then like many years afterwards, when the whole like bathroom thing happened with like my previous relationship, I was like, okay, this person is inspiring me to go back to self-harm because that's what they're doing, and I am no longer that.
Right.
Therefore, that's the moment when like any sort of affection in the relationship died, and it was just like basically a shell. And I knew eventually I'm just gonna hop off the train, basically.
So you would say if this relationship had reminded you of a version that you've already evolved from, that would be a non-negotiable.
Exactly. Yeah. No. That's more than a non-negotiable. That's just like an absolute like immediate termination.
Got it.
I'm saying that's just like
that's like a boundary.
I'm out. Like the like harder than a hard boundary. Like you know what I'm saying? Like this is like, okay. If I am now being inspired to devolve from who I was, immediately I'm gone.
That's valid. I mean, I have the same standard for myself. So
right. I knew from like the beginning of that relationship, I knew it wasn't going to be forever. Like I remember the first day of our relationship, I remember just like laying in bed, and I was just like there was like a voice in my head that was like, this person's not the one.
Oh, damn.
You know what I'm saying? And I was like, okay, well, I'm here now. So, I mean, hey, I'll
fuck around and find out.
Yeah, I'll fuck around and find out. And
yeah.
Of course, that came true. But like, I never had that with you. You know what I'm saying? I never had that like thought like with you. And so I was like, okay, cool. That means it's long term. As soon as we see a red flag, it immediately triggers a decision in our mind whether or not we want to like stick around, or if we're going to stick around, right?
Yeah.
Just making the hard decision that like you want to be in a relationship now was like the biggest thing that you want to overcome, because until you say those words to yourself as a guy, basically you have no intention of like settling down or whatever. So
okay. So you're saying the other thing is making the decision, like before you had met me, you had to make the decision that you want to be in a long-term relationship.
You have to make the long-term decision, because otherwise, like, life just slaps you around, and it won't give you, the thing is, like, life will always give you what you need until you get what you want.
Okay, but can you enlighten the younger female audience, like, what that really means for a guy? Because I feel like a lot of women, especially for me, it's like, I always thought there was something wrong with me and that I would attract all these younger guys and they were always cheating on me, when really, I feel like, looking at the other perspective, of course, I didn't deserve any of that and they shouldn't have done that to me, but I feel like men's brains are just wired differently, and they're just not late bloomers, but early 20s for guys. I feel like it's so hard for a guy to genuinely want to be committed to someone, especially think about marriage. I feel like with the exception of like maybe certain religions, I feel like most guys aren't even capable of being with one person. Can you help prevent harm for any younger girls that don't know what that even means? Yeah,
for sure. The short answer is date an older guy.
Okay.
That's literally the answer, because the thing is, for the most part, and like the highest amount of people in the standard deviation curve are only as loyal as their options.
Okay.
And so like what that means is like, the thing is like this applies to guys a lot, right? So especially guys that have achieved a lot when they're younger already, like if they have like, you know, a successful business or whatever, like when they're like 21, 22, you know, whatever, which is easily leveraged with social media because that's a lot of like, that's how a lot of them make it. Young guys don't have the same propensity to loyalty that most women do, only because women are just generally better communicators and guys are not good communicators. And that's like why, you know, I believe that like in general, women are just better communication wise than guys, which is why girls see through, you know, guys very easily, you know, especially young guys. Cause like young guys haven't experienced enough and their internal biological clock wants to experience as much as possible, you know, whether that's like, you know, working a lot of jobs or dating a lot of girls or whatever, or, you know, whatever other kind of like shenanigans they want to commit themselves to. It's not something that goes away for guys until like their mid to late 20s or early 30s, when they realize that their financial clock is ticking, right? Because just how like women have like a biological clock, men have a clock also, but it's not like a biological clock because biologically men can have kids up until like the day they die. You know, the sperm is always just alive. But like women have like a biological clock where
their eggs,
you know, like their eggs and their like beauty and youth and all that stuff. Sure, 100%. But in the late 20s or so, guys tend to not settle down, but start to narrow their focus and like their opportunities more, because like the early 20s where you should try a bunch of stuff. Like as a guy, like work this job, work that job, try this business, you know, date that person, you know, like just do as much as you can, because people having figured out who they are and what they want to do is just simply not something that comes along until you've experienced a lot, unless you intuitively already know when you're like 5 years old, I'm gonna be I don't know, a rapper one day, you know what I'm saying? And then you become a rapper, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like most of the things that people like focus down on as they get older are things that they have discovered as they try new things. Also like social media and just like guys in general, like they tell each other, you know, date as many girls as possible, whatever, just date as many people. You know what I'm saying? So like that influence is also not necessarily helpful.
Why do you think they do that?
They do that because typically guys that have a higher body count are seen as more confident, whereas guys that have a lower body count are way less confident. And like the reason that is because being able to like sleep with someone as a guy, as it relates to like youth and like your friends and you know, whatever, is like every guy wants to feel competent. They want to feel like, you know, they're different. They have something that's cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, and a lot of the confidence that they get from just doing, you know, like skills and tasks or whatever is kind of menial, versus if you are actually able to, you know, date a girl and like sleep with them or whatever, that's like hard baked confidence. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like the body doesn't just fade away. Like you can't ever subtract from your body count, right? Like that kind of thing. So like being able to like sleep with a girl as a young guy is hard-baked confidence for the guy, in the sense that that is the ultimate validation, right? And unfortunately, most guys don't have access to a ritual that once it happens and is fulfilled, makes a boy a man, basically. That's actually a big thing, because there's like tribes in Africa, for example, where in order to become a man, you have to take your hand and stick it into like this leaf cone with a bunch of bullet ants. And, if you can survive for 30 seconds, because every time like a bullet ant bites you, it's like getting shot, basically. It's like the pain.
How would they do that? Okay.
So I can't remember the exact ritual, but if you survive that and you wake up the next day and yes, that shit's hurting or whatever, it's like you are seen as a man. Other tribes...
Or you die.
Right, yeah, whatever,
stupid,
you know.
okay.
Yeah, exactly. And like other tribes, like in order to become a man and mate with the girls of the tribe, you have to go out, kill a lion, and bring back its head, right? Like so stuff like that. These are rituals that are like hard baked, like you have now graduated from boy to a man. These rituals don't exist in society. They exist in like a very soft, shitty way. Like you graduate high school, you graduate college, you get a job, you marry. So you know what I'm saying? Like, but they're none of them are rituals designed by elders that design a path for a boy to become a man. So that's the reason why
we default to these.
Yeah, like a lot of guys default to just boyhood, no commitments, you know, like doing hooligan shit, doing like degenerate stuff, you know what I'm saying? Like most boys are still boys, right? They may just be like 26, 27-year-old boys, right? But for me, and like I actually agree with Shia LaBeouf on this one. This is actually where I got this from. He said, you become a man when you become responsible for other people. And I think that is like the highest form of
that makes sense.
Like manhood that you can achieve is like you have dependence. People depend on you because you are dependable. And that makes you a man. So I just had to realize, it was like a hard realization that, okay, well, in order for me to become dependable and be somebody that people can depend on, what do I need, right? Well, you definitely need this freedom currency called money, because that unlocks everything, right? It means you would, like, if you have money, you'll never, you'll always have a roof over your head, you'll always have food on the table. And those are kind of like the basic needs of the lowest hierarchy that would make you dependable, right? Which is why I don't understand these like new age relationships where it's like 50-50 and you split the bill and you split the rent with your girlfriend. I mean, that just, it kind of like, because if you're giving that like responsibility to the woman, it emasculates them, the woman, and it demasculates the guy. Because like providing is a very male kind of thing. Like making money is a very male kind of like, topic, like you have to be disagreeable and you have to be willing to get your way and drive a hard bargain and all this stuff, right? And if you're giving the opportunity for your girlfriend to like pay for rent or like pay for other things, or you make them pay for it, like these new age relationships, it's just like
make you feel,
it makes them more like male energy, and it takes it from you because you're the one supposed to pay for all the rent, you know what I'm saying? Like, and pay for all the food and stuff,
Absolutely.
So in order for women to basically avoid this, like to avoid 80% of the guys that are out there, immediately, like what comes to mind is date an older guy that has had all the experiences, and go for a guy that's, when you get to know him, shows signs of wanting to like focus on one relationship, focus on becoming like a future dad and stuff, like find a man with like family values, because family values is the reason why they're still around, is because they've worked, you know what I'm saying? And so they're tradition. So if you find a guy with great traditions, like wants to be a father one day, wants to be a provider, and like, not just like, oh yeah, I'm totally gonna provide, you know what I'm saying? Like, no, like actually, like I genuinely want to like one day be a provider. And it doesn't matter if they're already providing or a provider, or if they want to be, as long as if they want to be, like you can tell that like that's like they actually mean that, right?
Yeah, I think that's something to be said. And there's actually, it's like a TikTok trend, or people have made TikToks about it. I'm glad that when you said that, you said you want to be a father and a provider, because there's a difference between saying that and saying you want a wife and a kid.
No, 1,000%. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, a lot of guys could want that, but not actually step up to the plate and do their part.
Yeah, 100%. And if they say it like how you said it, like I want a wife and kids or whatever, that's more of like the selfish thing to think about, because like this is what I want to receive, versus like I want to provide and I want to have a family. That's like, this is what I'm going to do, So it's like, this is what I want versus this is what I'm going to give. A lot of women also don't want to date. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of women, especially when they're young, they just want to like fuck around and like just give themselves away to just anybody that gives them attention or whatever. But that's not
some girls, not all girls.
Yeah, not all of them, but like most of them are told that this is an okay lifestyle.
I think they're confused. I think most girls that do that are confused in this, like in the same way that I am. Like, I guess I have to expose myself, but like I wish I didn't have as many partners as I did, because it wasn't necessary. I mean, of course, everything happens for a reason, and you know, if all those things didn't happen, who's to say we may not have met? But I feel like if I could give any advice to any girl, you don't need to learn things the hard way. You really don't need to learn the same mistake over and over and over with a different person. Like either seeking therapy or asking yourself, why is it that I like the validation from this person? Like, where does that come from? Because once you figure out the root of that, then you don't have to get your heart broken so many times to learn the same lesson. Yeah,
that's true. And the thing is, like, a lot of this also is on the girls to also create the mindset of what are they going to give to the relationship, you know? If girls just if they think, oh, I'm the prize, and if I'm in a relationship, then like they're just going to get me and they're going to have to do everything for me or whatever. That's not the right way to do it. Like, if you're going to get someone of high value, what is the equal value that you can provide? And the thing is, like, a lot of the things that the woman can provide are very like borderline like sexist things, you know what I'm saying? Like cooking and cleaning and just like the traditional stuff. Like it's crazy that we branded like these traditional things as like, oh, that's sexism. Like the whole like idea of women being in the kitchen is like a joke born from an ideal woman that a guy wants to be in a relationship with, you know what I'm saying? Like, because that's where like, you know, that's where women are like the best. Some women don't they don't cook at all. Maybe they don't want to. If you're going to ask for like a high value man, you have to be high value first. Like you don't attract something that you're not. And if you do, it won't last long, and that's for sure. Right. So like it's on the guy to basically like take all of the experience and be like, okay, cool, like I want to do this and I want to do that and I want to, you know, be a dad one day or whatever, all that stuff. And it's up to the girl. And it's so like the advice has to go both ways. Like the advice to girls is, yeah, definitely like go for an older guy, because you have a higher probability of finding that guy that wants to settle down and do all that stuff.
A higher probability is the key word. It's not guaranteed. And there's always exceptions to the rule. You could still find that with a younger guy. But if we're talking numbers, like, I'd say like 30 and up, to be honest. Because, you know, like,
you know, men lie all the time, women lie all the time, but numbers don't lie, right? So like probability is a big, because everything's probability. Yeah. And there's no like combination of words that either of us can say to 100% guarantee results for somebody.
So everyone's journey is different.
Yeah. The highest probability of like finding a guy that's past all that like young guy bullshit is to find an older guy, right? That being said, if you're a young woman, like your youth in terms of just like if you're like, you know, 30 and under, like as a woman, or like early 20s, late 20s or whatever, if you're in that range, you have the highest amount of leverage. That doesn't mean go around and increase your body count to double digits, you know, if you can avoid it, you know what I'm saying? But like, because the thing is, and the reason like why we worked out well is because I was immediately able to tell that you can still like bond with somebody. And like, as a guy with the goals and intentions that I have, that's like a primary indicator, right? But what happens is like if you have too many bodies, like tens of bodies or whatever or more, you lose the ability to bond with that other person on a level to where you're just like, yeah, like I'm chemically bonded to this person. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like taking double-sided tape and you put it down on a surface, and then it's like it's really strong, and then you rip it off, you put it back down, it's less strong, and you keep doing that until you end up with something the stickiness of like a sticky note. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to hold. Basically make your double-sided tape not sticky anymore is to sleep with as many guys as possible and down regulate the part of your brain that says like this is a bad idea and you're gonna suffer these consequences, basically. You know what I'm saying? Like that's like the real advice that like women aren't getting, especially like I don't like this, because the thing is, like, here's the thing, like, the only women that give this advice of like, oh yeah, like go and be with 30 people or whatever, does the person receiving the advice even want to be this person that is giving the advice, is my question. You know what I'm saying? Because I can't see like a quote unquote high value woman giving advice that's as juvenile as that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I like to think I've been seeing more of a resurgence where women are telling other women to be celibate and to wait. So I think we progressed in that regard, but there is still like there's always going to be, you know, people saying every single thing. But yeah, I don't condone having a lot of partners, to be honest.
No, it's really not good. It goes against all biological instincts too.
Right. And then it's like, I also see the religious, like why religion preaches or harps on that a lot, because you don't have to be religious to understand why how could that, you don't have to be religious to understand why being a hoe is damaging.
Yeah, right, for sure.
But anyway, I think, to wrap it all up, I think those are just some of the things that we had to overcome and some of our views, but let us know down below if you want us to expand on anything else and if you have any questions. But yeah, thanks for watching that BB Talk. Until next time.